I'm going to be talking to you guys about how to maintain emotional control during competition. So to kind of start off, I wanted to tell you guys about a little story with Kevin Love. And if you're not familiar with him, he's an NBA player. He's very good. He's a power forward. And he recently just signed this huge contract with the Cavs and was basically under a lot of pressure last season because essentially it's his team now and he has to be the guy. And LeBron just left, a lot of pressure on him, big contract, fans are expecting a lot. But the thing was, the roster sucked. The team sucked. And Love kind of began to show these visible signs of anger and frustration. He was moping up and down the court. He threw his hands in the air constantly. It was very obvious he was frustrated with his teammates, and he was kind of letting it bubble to the surface and not controlling it as well as he knows he could have, in his own words. So at one point, he was so frustrated, he fired a disrespectfully hard pass to one of his teammates and then proceeded to allow someone to backcut him and score an easy basket. And when these sports news outlets like ESPN, Times, they asked him to respond about his recent frustrations, and he said that I wasn't acting like a 31-year-old, I was acting like a 13-year-old. That was not me. And he goes on to say that I think you have to see all sides of it, and I've had to take a step back the last number of years and do that as well, seeing things in their entirety, when things are bad, when things are kind of not at a place where you want them to be. It's super hard. And he says that he thinks it transcends a basketball court, professional sports, and goes into any walk of life, in life in general. And he's finally states that he thinks that everyone can be better, we can all be better. And I kind of think this is indicative of the mental struggle in sports in general, right? And I think Kevin Love showed a huge level of maturity in responding like this. He's been open about mental health and anxiety in professional sports in the past, so it was really kind of intriguing to me that he's kind of still fighting this battle to this day, like a lot of us are, like a lot of athletes are, especially in this pandemic and whatnot. And I thought that the fact that he is able to reflect on his lack of emotional control is a huge step that kind of differentiates a professional athlete or an elite athlete from an amateur athlete. You know, a lot of athletes, the younger ones, high school, college, they lack that mental discipline in controlling their emotions. So that's why I'm on here to kind of talk to you guys about today, is kind of start recognizing these emotions and how to deal with them, how to control them during games, and leading to better performance. So to begin kind of here, emotional control in sports is about how well we can manage and control our emotions during competition, or more specifically, our emotional reactions. It's about learning to stay calm, when handling small problems, when we make a mistake or an error, these small problems that come up during, your games, and reacting with just the right amount of emotion given the situation, right? Because if we have something good happen to us during a game, it's most likely going to affect us in a positive way. We're going to build confidence. It's easy to see that good thing happen and be like, all right, I got this. I'm motivated. I'm going to do well now. But often what happens instead is we make mistakes. We're human, and that's a part of the game. We have minor hiccups, or we make an error in a game, and we let our emotions get the best of us. Because the thing is, we all know that if we aren't able to control our emotions and, channel them into our performance in a positive way, we're going to play worse, right? If we let our anger and frustration visibly show, that's usually a sign of struggle. So emotions can be defined as a brief, positive, or negative feeling that occurs in response to meaningful or important situations, and these can influence mood states. Basic emotions such as, fear, joy, excitement, anger, anxiousness, frustration, these are all prevalent. These are all super common during competition, and I know a lot of you guys experience these, in your day-to-day life in general. But the thing is, positive emotions, not the ones, or, some of the ones you see on here, positive ones can help sustain motivation and enable us to approach events with enthusiasm and energy. And that's the goal, right? We want to channel our emotion into a positive mindset. We want to be motivated during competition. We don't want to have emotions that come up that discourage us, that make us think we're worthless. We want to direct these emotions into a positive mindset. And emotions during competition can be triggered by a number of things that are personal to, the athlete. A mistake, individual memories, coaches yelling at you, teammates yelling at you or degrading you, your parents putting pressure on you. You might have an issue with the opposing team. And basically what happens is during the lead up to a competition, an important one, the body starts to prepare for, the demands of the game, the stresses of the game by releasing hormones like epinephrine into the bloodstream, and otherwise known as adrenaline. And this sets in motion a number of physiological changes associated with increased excitement, stress, fear, and a lot of people refer to this as the fight or flight response. And in addition, changes occur in the attentional system. Athletes become more focused and alert with increasingly active minds. These are good things, right? We want to be able to channel this adrenaline into something that can benefit us, right? So this increase in, adrenaline can be your best friend or your worst enemy. And the kind of key to maintaining a confident and game-ready mindset is to do a little bit of introspection, right? You want to analyze the changes, this adrenaline in a rational manner. And you want to redirect this adrenaline into something that can benefit you. That's the bottom line here. So what you'll see a lot of elite athletes, it's kind of obvious that they do is they associate this adrenaline with excitement, confidence, preparation, achievement, motivation. That's a winning mindset. They know they're able to control their emotions, control their mental game, and redirect that, excitement, that boost of energy into something that will fuel them. But the thing is, a lot of amateur athletes, a lot of high school athletes associate this adrenaline during games with stress, fear, worry, doubt. That's not a good thing. That's not what we want. We want to be that elite athlete, right? So what we need to learn how to do is to channel this adrenaline into confidence and a positive outlook on our performance, okay? And we want to minimize the effects that mistakes have on our emotions and performance. That's kind of the more important, one that's more implementable, I guess you could say, or practical during games. And the kind of way that we begin this process of emotional mastery is it begins with recognizing the negative emotional reactions that hurt your sports performance. That's the first step we always need to take. We need to recognize, we need to be aware. And that kind of brings us to step one here. And I'm going to teach you guys today how to create your own emotional control plan. All right, so step one, recognize. Big one. So when you start to feel negative emotions during a competition, be aware of what they are. For instance, frustration, anger, fear, anxiety, all that stuff. And again, before I keep going, guys, here we always like to tell our athletes to write this stuff down. Write your plan down, because I feel like there's some sort of therapeutic feeling about writing things down. We're more likely to act on the things that we put on paper. Right, so that's step one of recognize what were the emotions, okay? And then we want to ask ourselves, when did we start to feel these negative emotions? Identify the situation in which you lost emotional control. Players should identify the situations when their self-talk, emotions, or physiology become counterproductive. Okay, we need to recognize these moments. If you never take the time to reflect on your performance and your emotions during competition, you'll never be able to truly understand what exactly triggers the emotions. And this kind of leaves you in a cycle of not understanding how or why your emotions get the best of you. So what you can do now is think back to some moments where you lost your cool or got so frustrated you couldn't even focus on anything else. Remember these moments and then write down specifically what happened that made you lose control. While you write these down, remember to be super honest with yourself and don't, glaze over something that you're uncomfortable with. The more specific and the more honest we are, the closer we are to conquering and maintaining emotional control. Okay? So why did you start to feel these negative emotions? This is the why. And this kind of carries a lot of weight in the fact that it might require you to examine your emotional baggage. When we take a step back and look inside ourselves, it can kind of assist us in better understanding our emotional habits and how they might interfere with our life in general. And we kind of start to realize when we do this, when we look at ourselves deeply, we start to realize that there are alternative, emotional responses that can better serve us in our sport and in our life in general. So this is the first step to understanding your emotions. Recognize them. Step 2, evaluate. Okay? I want you guys to think about alternative reactions that you could have countered your emotions with. What are like physical things that you could have done within the game to kind of calm yourself down, instead of feeding into your negative emotions? For example, instead of yelling, "I'm terrible," you can, slap your thigh and say, "Come on, better next time." Or instead of screaming at the referee or umpire or, whatever you have, I don't know what sport you play, But instead of screaming at them after a disputed call, you could kind of turn your back and, take several deep breaths. Okay, these positive emotional responses will help you let go of these past mistakes, motivate you to perform better next time, and generate positive emotions that will give you more confidence. Okay? Next, I want you to kind of think about the thoughts. So not the physical actions that you could have countered with, the thoughts that you could have countered your emotions with. Think about thoughts that you might have had that would have motivated you instead of encouraged you, right? Thoughts that can dismantle a negative emotional reaction in an instant and maintain a good perspective on the competition. So this is huge right here because we need to write down these counter thoughts, these counter actions that we think of here so we can implement them in step 3. Step 3, plan. Okay, so here's where we're going to kind of use our, counter thoughts, counter actions that we thought of in step 2. So what you want to do is plan specific thoughts or mental cues that you can use to counter or keep a negative emotional reaction at bay. Plan ahead. Because, guys, thoughts direct emotions and actions. Therefore, players can kind of trigger a more productive response to situations that set them off by creating a mental cue. This can be a word or phrase that is specifically designed to bring out a more confident or productive response. Make these phrases specific to you. For example, when I made an error or, dropped a ball in my game, because I played college baseball, I would always tell myself, I'll make the next play, right? That would be my mental cue. And it was kind of instructive and, helped me coach myself away from this frustration and anger that I was always prone to. Some athletes use cues like, keep cool or I'm poised right now or be calm to help keep their emotions in check. Kind of notice how each cue highlights the desired response, right? So I wanted to make, I wanted to stay calm. I wanted to make the next play. I didn't want to let this play affect me in my next one. So I used the cue, I'll make the next play. And these cues kind of have to be specific to the emotional reaction that you're trying to achieve. And that emotional reaction is always going to be one of, motivation, of excitement, right? We don't want these emotional reactions of frustration, of anger, because those are the ones that will not help you play better. Okay, so make these cues, specific to what you want to achieve and that are kind of relevant to your sport. All right. So next in step 3, I want you guys to write them down and rehearse them to yourself so that you'll remember them when a stressful situation arises. Okay? Because the thing is, these stressful situations always happen. That's the nature of sports. You can't avoid it. Bad shit's always going to happen in a game. Okay? I mean, sometimes you're going to have a perfect game. You're going to be, on fire and whatnot. But to be consistent, we have to understand that we're going to mess up. Okay, and if you plan ahead for all the scenarios that could happen in your games when you make an error or you miss a free throw, if we prepare for these situations with mental cues that we have already ready to be said or thought, then you'll be able to effectively identify the thoughts and triggers that lead to a negative emotional reaction. So have a prepared mental cue to counter these thoughts, emotions, and start building positive emotional reactions during games, and this will lead to a higher level of performance, guaranteed. All right, so that's all I have for you guys today. Go get them. Done. Nice. Did it sound horrible?